This is Andy. Thank you for joining me for this video episode of the People and Projects Podcast. This is a continuation of our video series of just short lessons, things that I've learned in the last week that I hope apply to you. And I just want to tell you, I was driving home recently from an engagement and I was listening to Michael Hyatt, and he said a quote that I've also seen attributed to other people, so I'm not sure who it's original to, but the quote was something along the lines of, all the good things in life, everything that you want, are on the other side of fear. Okay, what do you think about that? All the good things in life are on the other side of fear. I mean, I can think of all kinds of great things that have happened just this month that were not necessarily related to fear. Do you know, when I think back over the course of my career, there are certainly things that, can't you relate, that you were anxious about, that you just thought, I don't know if this is going to happen. And then you leaned into it and you got to the other side. And in fact, it turned out to be a great thing. I shared last week that that's kind of my story with public speaking. In the last 19 calendar days, I've given 19 keynotes or workshops. I do this for a living now, right? But it was the scariest thing in my life before. What do you think about that quote? The greatest things or great things or really encouraging things, opportunities for growth, are on the other side of fear. I would be interested in hearing from you. What are some examples that you've experienced? Send me an email at show@peopleandprojectspodcast.com of how you faced this thing and you got to the other side. Because, right, that's what courage is, isn't it? Right? It's not that we're fearless. It's that regardless of the fear, we go off and do it. You know, as I'm driving home tonight, I'm going to think examples of that. In fact, let me invite you to ask a question that I've been asking people lately. Instead of like, how's it going? They go, just fine. And just the meaningless small talk. Why don't you ask somebody in this next week, hey, what's something that you've done recently? It was kind of scary. Or, you know, since a lot of people don't want to admit that they were scared, what's something that was a big challenge that you actually leaned into and it turned out great? You know, ask them a question like that. I'm interested in your feedback on this. Thank you so much for being a listener to the People and Projects Podcast. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the feedback. In fact, I'd love to hear from you. And also, check the show notes. We've got a listener survey that people from all around the world are taking. It's really helpful to me. So thank you for that. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of the People and Projects Podcast. Have yourself a great week. You know, I always think better after I have a large iced coffee on the way home from speaking. Just one more thought. You know, if you think over the last week or two and you can't think of something that kind of pushed you or stretched you where you felt some element of fear, I mean, like noticeably, I wonder if you're playing it too safe. And I say that because if you've gone to any of our project management classes in the last couple of years, you've heard me talk about David McClelland, the Harvard researcher, wrote a book called Human Motivation. And one of the things he talks about, you've probably heard this in some of our past podcasts if you've listened for a while, is that we're most motivated when we only have a 50 to 70% likelihood of success. Okay? Man, are you living in the 100%, the 90% to 100%, something like that, instead of the 50 to 70? I'm trying to push myself to take on engagements where I normally wouldn't have, when it's more in that 50 to 70. And you know what? There are times where I can see where it is more motivating. So think about that. I'm going to think about that while I drive home. See ya.